You've seen your own face today, probably multiple times, in the bathroom, on your phone screen, in a car window. Now imagine going your entire life, birth to death, without ever once seeing an accurate reflection of your own face. For the overwhelming majority of human history, that wasn't a hypothetical, that was simply reality. And the way early humans figured out what they looked like, and more importantly, how not knowing shaped who they became, is stranger than you'd think. Before glass, before polished metal, before any manufactured reflective surface existed at all, the very first mirror humans ever had access to was completely accidental: still water, a calm pool, a puddle after rain, the surface of a lake on a windless morning. But here's the catch: it was a terrible mirror. Water ripples with the slightest breath of wind. It reflects only in specific lighting conditions, and it shows you a face staring back distorted by every tiny disturbance on the surface. The earliest deliberate mirrors archaeologists have found are pieces of polished obsidian, volcanic glass, dating back roughly 8,000 years, discovered in what is now Turkey. Polishing a piece of obsidian smooth enough to reflect a face took real skill and time, which means only a small number of people in any early community likely ever had access to one at all. Which raises a genuinely strange question. If most people in most early human communities never had reliable access to their own reflection, how did they know what they looked like? Here's the answer, and it's more profound than it first sounds. Early humans built their entire sense of physical identity through the reactions of the people around them. No mirror to check your expression before speaking. No way to practice a smile in private. Every piece of feedback about your own face, whether you looked tired, whether you looked upset, whether people found you familiar or attractive, came exclusively from how other people responded to you in real time. Modern psychologists have a term adjacent to this: the concept that a huge part of self-image is built socially, not visually. Without mirrors, that wasn't a psychological theory. It was the entire mechanism. There was no other option. Think about what that actually means. You wouldn't recognize your own aging the way you do now, watching gradual changes in a mirror day after day. You'd notice it the way everyone else did, occasionally through comments, through comparison to memory, through how people treated you differently as you got older. Your face to you would have been almost entirely theoretical, something you were told about, not something you directly observed. If that thought is making you want to check a mirror right now, subscribe, because it gets even stranger from here. Here's where the science gets genuinely fascinating. The ability to recognize your own reflection isn't something you're simply born knowing how to do. It's a developed skill. The classic experiment, the mirror test, has been run on human toddlers for decades. A small mark is placed on a child's face without them knowing, and researchers watch what happens when the child sees themselves in a mirror. Most children don't reliably touch the mark on their own face, recognizing it as themselves, until somewhere around 18 to 24 months old. Before that age, many toddlers react to their own reflection as though it's a separate child. Some smile at it, some try to look behind the mirror for the other kid. Now scale that up. If self-recognition through reflection has to be learned even with constant modern mirror access, what happens to that skill in a person who has extremely limited or no access to mirrors throughout early development? Some anthropologists studying isolated modern communities with minimal mirror access have found genuinely different relationships to self-image, less fixation on the physical face, more identity built around role, relationships, and reputation within the group rather than appearance, which suggests something we rarely consider. The mirror-obsessed, appearance-focused version of self-image most of us live with today isn't some universal constant of human psychology. It might be a relatively recent invention. So when did this actually change for most people? Polished metal mirrors, bronze then later silver, existed in various ancient civilizations, but they were expensive, small, and usually reserved for the wealthy. For most of history, most people simply did not have daily reliable access to their own reflection. The real turning point came far later than you'd expect. The glass mirror backed with silver refined in the 1800s is what finally made clear, affordable, mass-producible mirrors available to ordinary people. Which means for roughly 99% of human history, the version of self-awareness built around constantly checking, adjusting, and monitoring your own face, the thing so many of us do dozens of times a day without even thinking about it, simply didn't exist as a normal part of daily life. That's an almost unimaginable shift in how humans related to their own bodies, and it happened astonishingly recently in the grand scope of our species' timeline. Here's the part worth sitting with. Modern life has quietly trained nearly everyone to treat their own face as something to constantly monitor, adjust, and judge, checking it in windows and phone cameras in literal mirrors dozens of times a day. For the overwhelming majority of human history, that simply wasn't how self-image worked. Identity was built through relationship, role, and reputation, not through repeated visual self-inspection. That doesn't mean mirrors are bad. But it does mean something we treat as a completely natural, universal part of being human, checking how we look constantly, is actually a strange recent habit, layered on top of a species that spent nearly its entire existence without it. Your ancestors didn't know what they looked like most of the time, and they built entire identities, relationships, and legacies without ever needing to. So the next time you catch yourself checking a mirror out of pure habit, remember, for almost all of human history, that habit simply didn't exist. Identity came from people, not reflections. If this changed how you think about something as simple as a mirror, hit subscribe, because next we're looking at something even more essential: how ancient humans kept food from rotting without a single refrigerator, freezer, or can. The methods are more clever than you'd expect, and some of them are still used today.